All right, welcome back, dear viewers. Today we're going to do episode 4 Xenomorphs, an Alien RPG. This will be a quick video. It is the Easter weekend, and I want to get back to the festivities, but at the same time, I didn't want to leave y'all hanging with respect to this deep dive. So, this will be a quick video. Before we get into it, you know the usual: hit like, subscribe, bell icon, yada yada yada. If this is the kind of channel you like, basically, I play games, I record myself playing games, and then I talk about those games. Nothing against the flip through review, but I have found that sometimes reading an RPG is more fun than actually playing it, and I want to give you guys my honest to God assessment after using a product. So, and I want to show you that I have been using the product. So, anyway, if that's what you are into, check out my channel. So, Xenomorphs. Um, Very interesting set of rules for creatures in this game. Alien RPG was actually my first experience with the Year Zero game engine, so I was a bit surprised to see that the xenomorphs, the monsters, function a little differently than NPCs and whatnot. So um, I'm not going to go line by line through every single xenomorph that's in the book because that would take forever. And at the same time, I don't want to be turning my videos into just crib notes for playing the game. You know, you should go out and buy it because I do think it's a fun game. But I am going to just kind of talk about what the xenomorphs can do. So, generally speaking, they do not have skills. They don't have, they don't have attributes, but they do use specific skills. And depending on how the rolls come out, we'll cross that bridge in a second. You will be told how many base dice to roll for the skill that they're going to use. So, for example, if you're in the middle of the stealth mode phase of the game before combat starts, more than likely you're going to be told for a xenomorph praetorian roll 10 to 12 base dice for their mobility check while they're trying to stealthily move through the ducts or move through a compartment on a spaceship or something. Um, and then, if you recall from earlier videos, the players would be rolling observation rolls versus that 10 or 12 base dice pool to see if they detect the xenomorph. Um, the They tend to be fast. As you can see here, speed. They move one zone per speed point. So, and I see a lot. Most of them have like a 3 to 4. So they move quickly through the ship. Um, when combat comes, this is where things get really interesting and lethal. They have multiple actions. So, depending on the speed rating, that's how many cards they get for the initiative. So if speed rating, like I said, is typically 3, they're going to get 3 cards, and then the rest of the players get to select from the rest of the deck. And each initiative step allows them one slow and one fast action. So they are quick and they are lethal. Um, They have signature attacks, and that way that works is you roll a 1d6 and consult a chart. This is where it's different, right? So if you're going up against an NPC, you don't look at speed rating, they just get one initiative step, one slow action, one fast action, and then you roll on their melee attack skill or their ranged attack skill and consult the weapon they're using, blah, 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 blah. Not xenomorphs, not monsters in this game system. You roll a 1d6 and consult a chart. And I'm going to give you an example of the chart later, but it could be a variety of things that happen at that um, initiative step when it's their turn. Um, it is possible to block an attack from them, but you need a weapon or a blunt instrument to do so. Um, when a xenomorph is reduced to 0 health, it isn't considered broken. You roll on this chart, and I have it right here, and that'll tell you what happens. And as you can see, there's a 33% chance of killing it outright. Um, but there's also a chance that while it's going to die, it will get one last sort of attack or action or something like that. Um, so I would say about 50% of the time you're going to kill them. The other 50% of the time they're going to do something else. Um, they have an armor rating due to the thick hide, and like I've noted before, they do have special abilities. Um, Now, the Xenomorph section of the book is broken down into 6 sections, and it shows each stage of the Xenomorph sort of life cycle, starting with the egg to the face hugger, chest burster, and then these are essentially 3 different types of xenomorphs you can encounter, like the Stalker Scout drone. I think that one was in Alien 3. Okay, that's the one on the prison planet. I think the worker may have been um, the first movie. Don't quote me on this though. And then, of course, you saw all kinds of aliens in the second movie. And then in each of these uh, stages, there are, I guess, I don't want to say sub stages, but there's a variety. There's different face huggers, there's a different chest bursters that can pop out of someone's chest. And so there's a little variety for the game master to sort of select from what they want to do. Special abilities. The acid splash. This is can be pretty lethal. I ran a game where someone shot at a xenomorph while someone was in, I believe, not engaged range, but they were in the same zone. So they ended up getting acid to death, and they became like a puddle of goo on the floor. Um, they have a really neat ability, sprint, where they can take a slow action and move twice their speed, so they could like cross a couple of zones in an instant and tear someone apart. They are resistant to vacuum, immune to the cold. They have radiation resistances. They give off no heat signature. They are resistant to fall damage. There's no respiration, so they don't have to worry about like oxygen really. I mean, you can see here they are tough to kill. Uh, each of those stages, as I mentioned, does have its own stats and combat actions, and therefore their own charts that you'd be rolling on. Okay, and of course, there's descriptions of the kind of behaviors these stages will have. Um, every monster, including the xenomorph, has a section on containment and termination protocols. This gives you some insight into the creature's weaknesses, if there is any. Uh, they have a hive mind, so when there is a queen present, xenomorphs become more coordinated and their movements less random, which is really interesting. And then they have a section on the royal jelly that is secreted by the queen. Um, when ingested by humans and other animals, it increases strength, stamina, and aggression. A lot of Game Master discretion here. You can do some stuff with it. I believe there was a comic book series that actually went into Marines being tested on, and they're given some of this stuff to, I don't know, become super soldiers or something. I never read it, just something that was on my radar. Okay, so that's pretty much the xenomorphs, but there's a bunch of them. Okay, this book also offers some other creatures, but not a whole lot. So it starts off actually on the engineers. Those are like there's no stats for them. They're essentially the forerunners to the Alien RPG universe. And if you've watched like the movie Prometheus, you'll see them. They created Agent AD 3959X.91-15, which is that weird black stuff, and they've released it into the solar system, the universe, blah blah blah. Basically, this section is about giving you, the game master, some ideas to generate places to explore, weird stuff to find, including technology that may still work It's up to you. There's no stats for it though, so you get to kind of be, creative here, um, and kind of leaves it open on what all this means. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail in later videos on Alien RPG about the background of the universe, but the engineers obviously are part of it. It also goes into the Neomorphs, and I have an image of one here. If you saw Prometheus, there was a Neomorph there. Um, my understanding from reading the book is that these are xenomorph versions of like mushrooms or something. Like they essentially um, bond with the bacteria and fungus on a planet, and from that Agent AD 3959X.91-15, and kind of create these things. Like the Xenomorphs, it has stages of development. Like the Xenomorphs, you roll on attack actions. They're not as fast as the Xenomorph, but what's interesting is they're also sterile. They don't reproduce. I think these are more like biological weapons for the engineers. That's my hunch, anyway. There's a lot of interpretation here. Another creature they have here is something called the Swarm. These are like giant, very large locust-like insect creatures that can be found on planets with fertile grass and farmlands. This is pretty cool because this is the only creature, aside from the Xenomorphs, I guess, that isn't really tied to a particular planet. These swarms can actually travel through space. And again, they have their own attack actions, but what's interesting here too is depending on the size of the swarm is going to affect the health. So for every zone the swarm takes up, it gets 5 health points. So it's going to be really hard to kill these things because you're basically shooting at locusts, The Harvester is this giant 6-legged creature that lives on the planet Tartarus. It can hide underneath the ground and sort of surprise people by erupting out of it. Pretty huge. I guess it's responsible for destroying a colony on the planet. You can also encounter juveniles, 2d6 of them at any given time. And again, there's some containment termination protocols associated with these rather large creatures. Very interesting looking creature as well. Another one is an apex predator on this jungle world in the game called the Lion Swarm. It has no eyes, but it's covered in ears, and it has, I guess, a really sensitive nose and a razor-sharp beak. And it's an ambush predator that is pretty deadly, about up to 3 meters long. So it's like a giant worm-like creature. And then the last one is the Tanakan scorpionids. They are like giant scorpions, essentially. They have a poison stinger. They can swim, and it's recommended to use blunt objects when trying to kill them, because their carapace is pretty resistant to, I guess, gunfire and whatnot. But that's it for the creatures. Real quick, I'll give a complaint. This is a Xenomorph game, Alien RPG, so there's not a whole lot here for you to develop your own. And if you're going to do like a campaign, I think you're going to need to figure out how to make your own monsters. So you're not just fighting Xenomorphs all the time, because they will get boring. And in the background and universe, world generation background for this game, the Xenomorphs are considered a legend, like stories told by drunk spacers, and they're like rumored not to exist or exist, and there's like all this just fear built up around the Xenomorph. And the campaign I was running, I purposely avoided using Xenomorphs because I wanted that to be the big thing. Like around the time I decide to end the campaign and we're kind of done, that's when the Xenomorphs come in. And I don't. This book doesn't really provide you with a way to create your own alien creatures. You can sort of borrow, obviously, from what's here, but it would have been nice to have something, just even if it's just a single page that says, "Hey, here's some things to think about, and here's how to keep it consistent with, the rule set." There's nothing like that here. So, and I will be talking more about this in later videos. But this is where I think Alien RPG starts to fail as a long-term campaign game. It's awesome for one-shots, absolutely awesome for one-shots, or like mini campaigns, ones that are not meant to last for a very long time. But I would have liked to have seen more. Okay, so here are two tables that are examples of these attack actions. So I have the harvester here, and so whenever it's the harvester's turn, you would roll a d6 and see what it does. So it could charge, do a stampede, use its burrowing claws, that sort of thing. And then over here is the soldier and sentry, the xenomorphs, when they attack, what they can do. And I love this. So again, you got to remember, they will attack or have multiple actions in any given round. So at the beginning of the round, they could assess the threat, right, and immediately put everyone on stress, right? And then later in the round, they might do an all-out attack, and then at the end of the round, they might die for the queen or something. It's pretty dramatic and pretty lethal, as you can see here. The all-out attack is 12 base dice, damage 2, and the attack is armor piercing. Armor piercing means that if you're wearing armor, your armor rating is half. So if your armor rating is a 4, you're only rolling 2 dice to withstand 12 base dice. Okay, that sort of thing. But that's how creatures function in this game. Okay, compared to NPCs and synthetics. And then, of course, yes, there is an NPC list in the book, but it's not in the same section as the alien section, obviously, because NPCs aren't aliens. But it's counterintuitive in my mind, because when I think of NPCs, a list of NPC stats, I think of a bestiary, and I would have liked to seen them all sort of like in the same section. But there is a single page section dedicated to giving you advice on how to just kind of create your own NPCs, and then there's a 3-page section that gives you this generic ready-made stats with talents and skills, but they're in 2 separate sections of the book. That's my big complaint with this book, is just the layout is so counterintuitive. But you have 3 pages, and it covers everything from some synthetics to roughnecks to scientists to military personnel, pilots, that sort of thing. But and they're pretty useful to have. I mean, I'm pretty much have a photocopy of those pages just ready to go on my computer. So all I have to do is just point and say, okay, this is what I'm going to use for this, which is useful. I just wish it was in a more logical place in the book. Okay, so anyway, but that's it, guys. Real quick video. The Xenomorph section is really fun to read. It's a lot bigger than what I'm showing you here. Again, I don't want to like give away all the rules to the game, that sort of thing. And go out and buy the book. but very cool section, and very interesting lethal monsters. So okay, well, that's it, guys. I hope you have a great Easter weekend, and I will see you soon.